Okay.
All right, 30 seconds. Your 30 seconds are up. No more boomer music.
Stop right there, criminal scum.
And remember to check out Omega Girl on Indie Planet.
Definitely,
Okay,
yeah.
guys.
I love that. I love that intro.
We haven't used it in a while. I thought I'd bring it back. So, folks out there in the internet world, it is Wednesday. It is time for the Mattriarchy, and apparently a giant attack of stuttering. I don't know what's wrong with me today. My goodness sakes! But it is Wednesday. We are on board to discuss the 10 Nights of the Beast. The which, man, I have some things to say about this comic. So, this was Hutch's suggestion, because
It's all your fault.
Sorry,
is that how it's going to be?
Presidential assassinations are on my mind, and this is like, hey.
Oh, really? Is that why you picked it? Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
So, this was, of course, a series within. Was it Batman or Detective? I don't even remember.
Batman. It's Batman 417 through 417, 18, 19, 20. 417 through 20.
Written by Jim Starlin, and when Hutch suggested it, I was like, "Ooh, I picked that up at the comic shop a few years ago, and never took the time to read it before." So I was like, "Great! I gotta pull this puppy out and check it out." I grabbed the trade. This copy was actually, I think it's an older version of this trade. I'm not sure when it was published, but it seems to have been printed on newsprint and then bound. So, yeah. Now, my first exposure to KG Beast was in the pages of, I guess it would have been the third Robin miniseries, the Chuck Dixon and Tom Lyle did. Actually, I'm not sure Tom Lyle was in on that one. I think he may have been doing Spider-Man at the time.
Is that when he was like a Robin? Because I think he transitions to being more of a Robin or Nightwing villain.
Yeah, I think that's when that happened. And was in that miniseries. It was the Cry of the Huntress, Robin 3, Cry of the Huntress. And that was my first exposure to him. And I tell you what, there was as much as I love Chuck Dixon, I gotta say, I'm not sure he did justice to that character.
Chuck's he's not invincible. He's not flawless. He's not perfect, and that's okay. That's fine. In fact, it humanizes someone if they're not everything they write is perfect.
But anyway, let's say
the KG Beast later is kind of hard to take seriously. First of all, by now, I mean, the KGB has been gone for 30 years. Well, granted, it just is another name, but you know what I mean. Go ahead.
Even by the time, yeah, gone. Even
Isn't it just like the president? It's the office of the president.
Well, I mean, sort of. But no, the KGB was like the fifth name for the secret police. I mean, they were the Streka and the NKVD and whatever.
Yeah, But I'm just saying, a character running around with a Cold War name, 20 years after Russia's fallen is kind of odd. So, yeah.
You'd think that.
I think it's a great name. I think it's a great name for a character. I got to start with the positives. While we're talking, let me actually pull up. We got to pull up some.
We got to show some pictures. I can't just flip through my floppy here.
The first time you see him, that leather costume and the bare skin and it just looks. It looks right out of a fetish website.
No. That actually plays into one of the covers. I'm going to start with this one. This is from issue 3.
Here we go. Let me bring you up on screen here. This is the cover.
And that's what they went with. They went with BDSM. And even on the cover, they went with that. But I have a couple thoughts I wanted to say about this. And
let's lay the premise out before we start talking.
Sure.
So the premise is that this is a late Cold War era spy story, right?
Mhm.
A la like in the very
Supposedly
same
a
nature
spy story.
as the genre as like a Tom Clancy kind of story.
Sure.
But it's
Isn't
back.
that where the name comes from? Is it Five Nights of the
You thinking like Five Nights of the Condor or something?
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that?
yeah. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure 10 Nights of the Beast
probably.
is pretty sure that's what they were riffing off.
Yeah, that was Five Nights of the Condor, which I had not been aware of until I ran across the remake, which is Condor, which was a mini series that was done at some point.
3 Days of the Condor. Okay.
Okay.
And which was a 1970s spy story about an analyst who gets caught up into a spy adventure because he discovers the wrong secret, and that secret is that the U.S. government is funding the operations of a communist bloc terrorist organization.
Oh, they'd
So
never do that. What? That's just Hollywood.
yeah, I mean it's not like the president of this nation has ever admitted to being the power behind the throne of like one of our greatest enemies or anything. That certainly didn't happen. So like just 2 weeks ago, definitely didn't happen.
Obviously, they never happened before that either. Like it's not like ever since the Cold War we haven't had this as a recurring theme.
Right. So
but-
anyway,
yeah.
basically the KG Beast is a Russian operative who's been running around the Iron Curtain in the Soviet bloc for some amount of time, wiping out oppositions to the party, and that he's always been on that side of the country, and then of the planet. Then all of a sudden he gets sent to Gotham City, and the powers that be get a hold of Commissioner Gordon, and they say, "Listen, guys, you got to help us because you know this town, and there's this big Republican convention that's going to happen there." And
Can I give the premise very succinctly?
oh, go for
You
it.
kind of skipped over it. Basically, this is like a black ops group within the KGB, and this and
Yeah.
Gorbachev, who is trying to reform the Soviet Union, wanted to shut them down. So what they did was they sent him off on Operation Skywalker, and Skywalker is the name of an operation intended to kill everybody in charge of the Star Wars program in America. And they're all in Gotham at this time, except for the last
so on the
name.
nose.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
Skywalker will take out
right.
the Star Wars. Okay.
Well, and the
Thanks,
part
Jim.
that I skipped over, and then kind of you skipped over too, just a little bit, was that the beast has gone rogue, and so
Not really.
supposedly he's carrying out
in
he's
theory,
carrying out he's carrying out
theory,
in
yeah.
theory, but he's carrying out a plan that is no longer in favor by the powers that be in Russia. So
Right.
Russia's like, no, we don't want to do that plan, and the KG Beast is like, but I already started. I don't know what you want out of me. No, I started.
There's some debate. So the pitch of the story is meant to be a kind of nod to a spy thriller with Batman.
Yep.
The execution, I'm going to say that is a debatable conclusion, because I think that the way the story plays out is
Right.
kind of just a bloodbath.
Let's start with the good stuff, the design elements, kind of the milieu of things, and then let's talk about the things that were a little.
If I could start,
Go for it.
The reason this was such a hit, I mean, this was a big hit. You couldn't buy this in back issues at the time because it was very highly desired. When it came out, it was a hit. So one of the things about it is that the KG Beast is an adversary worthy of the Batman. He's a highly trained guy, proficient with all these weapons, and he is kind of a precursor. He's a precursor to Bane, basically.
You preempted me. I was actually about to. Perfect segue. So what is interesting is, yes, and I think it's fascinating because if you, hold on, I'm pulling up a couple facts here. So if you count, and I'd be interested to hear about additional examples. But if you Nightfall happened in 1993 through 94, which is obviously kind of I think it was a follow up for DC's success from Death of Superman. So it's like, let's do something similar with Batman. But in the lead up to those years, you have, of course, the 10 Nights of the Beast, which happens in 1988.
Yeah.
And then a year later, they have Batman Blind Justice, which are both essentially kind of practice runs at Nightfall and the Bane archetype. Because in Blind Justice, you have Batman being put in a wheelchair, and then his opponent is a kind of a brains and brawn kind of combo. And then visually, and I'm wondering if this is, and these are things that I'm going to have to rely on you guys for, because I was young little lad, like 2 years old at the time for some of this. But there seemed to be, if we look even at the design here, the BDSM gear, and then if you look at the Brute Bone Crusher from Blind Justice, and I'm sure I don't know, those are the two examples I'm aware of. I'm not sure if there were more, but there seemed to be this shift, this desire to kind of bring the brains and brawn together into a single villain. In addition to that, while also channeling what I would argue is a pro wrestling kind of aesthetic, there was this idea, because if you look at all the skin being shown here, the idea here between him, Bone Crusher, and Bane is they wanted to show off the muscle, and they wanted to show it off in a sort of like pro wrestling kind of a way. These guys all are built like either pro wrestlers, or they're built like Arnold Schwarzenegger, or, you know, They wanted to channel that aspect, and they wanted it to be a guy who was not just a brute Hulk kind of character. They wanted him to be, they wanted brains and brawn together.
Right.
And so KG Beast was like one of the first. It's clear it's an early attempt at that, and it's so funny to read it now, because they have a couple panels where they say he's enhanced. He has the strength of 4 men. And it's just so funny, because like when we get to Bane, we get to the point where he's easily he's like at the strength of like a dozen or something, and he's the modern incarnations of that character in both film and video games that basically have turned him into a mini Hulk. So it's kind of funny to have a character who's he's stronger than the average man. In fact, it would take 4 guys to take this guy down. And so there's a sort of like this this practice ramp up with the not only the aesthetics, but also the general theme of this character. They wanted this, as opposed to characters that had populated the Rogues Gallery before. Like, you know, Joker's got some really interesting gimmicks, but you put him in the ring with Batman, and everyone knows Batman he's punching that guy's ticket. Most of
like the other anti-Batmans that have been before that, they're all ends up being just kind of jokes. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except for Ra's al Ghul, who is all brains and is only really hard to fight when he's got the madness of coming out of the Lazarus pit.
The idea here,
you get like the Wraith or whatever, and he was a pretty
Wrath,
he was a pretty decent.
So Wrath is a dark mirror. This is something that's not a dark mirror. It's not meant to be a mirror inversion. It's meant to be a guy who is essentially, when you look at him, you go, that guy's threatening. He looks bigger and more powerful than Batman. And then later, when you see how competent this guy is at special ops, it's and it's like, wow, how is we're creating a threat for Batman that Batman is going to either have to work or get lucky to defeat. And that's something that's kind of
how is this guy disappearing in the crowd?
Right.
I know, right?
But at the end of part 2, he actually says, "This guy is better than me."
Yeah, he's better at me. Yeah.
And you know, like I said, the problem is the KG Beast is a dated figure, and even 3-4 years later, they're kind of. I don't know that he was great in this story. I don't know that he works as an ongoing thing. And you're right about the wrestling thing, because of course Bane has that luchador mask. Yeah. So they're really going into it, but the whole business with him being injected with venom, so he's got as many muscles as he needs to do what he wants, but his real threat is his brains. That's clearly what they were going for. And yeah, I'd say this is not really like a failed attempt at like this one didn't work, so they had to do Bane, but more like this worked really well. It's not really good for an ongoing forever character, but they wanted something like this. Yeah.
So they kept, they kept at it until they settled on it. To me, it's interesting because Dixon and Nolan got to be the ones who really cracked cracked through and made the character that is so important. I would argue that Bane really represents a kind of a separation. There's pre-Bane history and there's post Nightfall. Like Bane really represents a huge shift in Batman's rogues gallery. And so it's funny it's interesting to read this story to think that Bane, for all of what Dixon and Nolan do, it's not that original of a concept. It's something that this really is the prototype of it in so many ways.
Yeah.
Down to even the color scheme in some ways, and the costume design. So
the body build, is very much there. If you were to look at his silhouette, you'd go, "Is that Bane?" Yeah.
Yeah.
So that very much so.
Well, even like in this one, this is not the mask they settled on, right? But this mask looks far more like the luchador mask. This kind of gimp mask here looks far more like the luchador mask.
Actually, it looks far more like a gimp mask.
I know. Yeah. This is actually, it's. I think the cover artist didn't get the right memo, because this is really not what he looks like in the comic. But in the comic, he doesn't look that much better than this. So, really bizarre design. The design they went with later, when I think he was like a Nightwing villain, is actually way better. I will say this character, because he gets he kind of becomes almost superfluous after Bane, so he gets really murked later on.
Even before Bane, he gets pretty depowered. Like I was saying in Cry of the Huntress, the Robin 3 Cry of the Huntress, he's one of the main villains, but he's really he gets the same kind of treatment that Bane got in the Batman and Robin movie, where he's super like
dumb
tough.
brute. Yeah.
He's pretty much a dumb brute. Part of the reason it's played that way in the Robin is that he's supposed to so overpower Robin and Huntress that his whole shtick is that he underestimates their skill at all, because he's just gonna overpower them with brute strength, and so he doesn't give any credence to them in any way. And the whole premise of that book is constantly like, are them outsmarting them and Helena out savaging like the KGBs, because like her she's a violent person,
right?
like she gets a weird, like that's part of the thing, is like she gets kind of a twisted.
So by the time he hits, I think it's Face the Face. I double checked. He gets murdered by Two-Face. He gets outfought and murdered by Two-Face. So it's like they not only depower him,
I
they
think
completely
another thing about him
hard.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think who knows what his status is now, because they can always bring him back, But is that before Rebirth? Is that before New 52?
I'm pretty sure he was the last. I think he's dead and then forgotten. I think his last showing was in like as a Black Lantern. There's a whole host of characters whose last appearance was they got to have a last
Black Lantern
as a Black Lantern or something.
Yeah, don't I know it? That's how poor Ralph and Sue ended up. So anyway, the thing about the KG Beast is that he's a good tactician. He's not necessarily a good mastermind. I mean, he's been given a preset plan of go here and do this. And,
right.
He's a good tactician. He may not be what Bane is, So right. But I really do love this story. That's okay. So that's the first thing, is the KG Beast himself, and I like that this story is around 88 when they actually started having like real real politicians and famous people could show up in DC Comics, because before they used to always have a stand-in. They had there's actually a guy who is Christopher Reeve in the DCU. He's the guy who's played Superman in movies. He's not Christopher Reeve, but his name is very close. They could never actually do like real people, but whenever they would have a president, it would just be some made up president, sort of thing. Some vague president, kind of like the one in Superman 2, the movie.
Like President Smith or something.
We don't say who it is. Yeah, it's just the DCU has its own president. But here they actually used Reagan, and around the same time, Booster Gold's origin was that he's preventing the assassination of Ronald Reagan.
And I think the real assassination or the real attempt of Ronald Reagan is also canon to DC at the time. So you get so like in the DC universe, there are so many people trying to kill Ronald Reagan.
I want to talk about, I do. I would love to talk a little more about
how bad is the Secret Service in your universe, people?
I know it's about as bad as the one in real life.
How bad is the one in real life?
Yeah, the one line in here about the how the Secret Service are so expert at protecting the president, and that's like, wow, that line really does come off ironically right now.
It did not age.
I want to revisit the Ronald Reagan aspect maybe in a little later because it is something I think that is fascinating. We need to talk about. But I wanted to bring up that although KG Beast has been reduced to DC jobber, who I think he's actually shown up in a couple of recent animations. He showed up in one of the Justice League cartoons, and he is, of course, the one who gets his head blown off by Amanda Waller. So they're using him as a jobber. They're just tossing him aside. But in his initial appearance, he is a juggernaut. He is essentially
genuine Soviet badass.
He is unstoppable. Batman essentially can't prevent almost anything he does through these 4 issues. There's a list of like 10 people, and I believe he kills 8 of the 10. Yeah, so like, and Batman's trying to stop him the whole time.
Kills 8 of the 10 plus another like 110 people.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
It's a crazy death toll. And this is our first, I think he kills like 6 people or so right here. And I wanted to point this out because this is a very interesting, it's a solid opening for a villain and a solid comic book page. We have that wonderful top and bottom tier, and then we have 8 panels of utter carnage. And so the first panels are lead in, the second panel is just the aftermath, 8 panels of violent death, and 10 panels on a single page. And
this whole book, I gotta say, this is Aparo doing what Aparo does best.
Yes. Yes, really it is Aparo at his best. It really is. Yeah.
Very good comic page. Yeah, no, I took note of this
ways,
one.
Like there's some weird clunkiness. Like the first issue was so heavy in which, I mean, all spy stories, the beginning of the spy stories are super heavy in exposition because that's just part of the genre, right? But like it is so heavy in exposition. It was hard to get.
It is, but they did a pretty good job. I would add to that. They did a pretty good job even with that of starting off with an action scene, and they get through the basic pitch in about 4 pages. They set up Star Wars. He's out to kill. 4 pages. They're able to hit that mark, and they're able to do that while also having a full page spread or just a splash page as the next. Yeah, so like I was really impressed by Aparo's panel, his layouts here. He crams 10. I mean, normally if you say, "Hey, cram 10 panels on a page," I'm like, that's gonna be a disaster, right? But he's able to make 10 pages.
Like look at those. Look at these 2 pages. Look at these pages. So he crams 10 panels of just pure comic book action, storytelling, narrative building. I mean, there is not a wasted centimeter on this page. It is just it is flawlessly used. And then the next page is a splash. It's just like bam, and it's every bit as dynamic. It's tension. It holds the mood.
And you also know the theme of it there because you have the whole Russian, you have the minarets. So and it's a good change of pace because after 10 panels you need to breathe. And so he lets it kind of like expand. It was very well done. I was very impressed. And while he does this, he's also able to, in about 4 pages, like I said, hit you with the basic pitch of KG Beast in America, here to stop the Star Wars program. He's out to kill a list of people. Boom. That's our basic gist of the plot. We're ready to go to the races, more or less, with that. There's still some more, as you say, some more exposition and setup. I think it takes about 10 pages to really kind of get all that done. But the first 4, you know why you're here.
Right, and one of the difficulties that this story has too, and it's not a huge difficulty, but it is a little bit of a difficulty, is that the task force that's in charge of trying to protect these 10 guys, and they all are terrible at their job, but there's a lot of government agents. There's FBI, there's CIA, there's military intelligence, there's somebody from the KGB who's there with this fellow, so you've got like this cast of probably a dozen people that kind of all look the same and kind of all have the same job, and then a few random cops, of which we know Jim Gordon. And so
no, I have to agree that I was one of the things about, definitely a criticism point, is they Starlin crammed in more characters. It's every time he introduces the FBI, he introduces like 4 names, and basically 3 of them don't matter at all to the story.
Well, and the thing about it is like it feels like the research that went into it, because it's not unlike how these teams actually work, right? You'll have a group of folks, and there's pairs of them within it that are working on specific things. So it's not unlike how security teams work. So it's like Starlin went through and researched how security teams work, and then said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. But to me, the thing is it feels like in Moby Dick, and I haven't finished it, so don't judge me on that. But in Moby Dick, there's the there's the chapter on White, where Melville talks about the thematic and mythic and symbolic representation of white and how that relates to his story. And it's like, so okay, Herman, listen, I understand that like you went through and thought about how all this is and why you picked the white whale as the piece in your story, and that's great that you did this research, but I don't need to read your notes.
It gets really bad when he starts he just has chapters just on how the whaling industry works and how whale oil works.
Right.
And
Well, I mean,
we get it, Herman. We get it, Melville. You served on a whaling vessel. Yeah, we get it.
Thoroughly researched. We really appreciate it. It adds a level of clarity to your subtext, to your story, and it's great. But it does nothing to do with the story.
And then we take the bucket. Then we scoop out the ambergris.
Yeah. So I feel like this is a little bit like that with all these. The man in the gray flannel suit.
It's not as bad as when Grant Morrison does it. And he's like, hey, I read a book on quantum mechanics.
Yeah, Grant, I'm sure you understood it. So, but yeah, so that was the situation. But it added a feeling of authenticity to the piece, but it also was just like, okay, which of the people I got to keep track of? Is it the blonde, the brunette, or the redhead? Which is the one that matters for the story?
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, when I was reading this, I was pretty sure that it was the CIA guy who actually is a character. I mean, a distinct, separate character who isn't one of these identical drones.
Exactly, because he's one of the ones that doesn't look like the rest of them, and he has more speaking to do. So you're just like, obviously, you're being directed toward that guy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say that overall, I have mixed feelings on this. I did not really enjoy the story that much. There are things that I can appreciate about it. Aparo's art is really solid. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I just the layouts in some places were amazing. I struggled reading this because of how 2 things mostly. But I didn't particularly like how unstoppable KG Beast was. And by unstoppable, I don't mean just like in a fight. It's actually fun to challenge Batman in a fight. That was actually kind of nice. But the fact that Batman is powerless to stop essentially 100 plus murders in Gotham is that's a hard pill to swallow. I'm sorry, that's rough.
Well,
and
like one of the scenes, I want to say one of the reasons the death count is so high, and this is actually a really great scene, is it's at an RNC event. It's a big fundraising event that the RNC is hosting, and they've got all these Gotham City high rollers that are at this fancy dinner, and one of the speakers is on the list, right? And then what happens is and Batman's there in disguise, and so he's just like, okay, here's the story. I've got this. You know, there's enough people have died. I'm going to be on site. I'm going to be here to watch the thing go down, and then the speaker is announced, and he gets up and he puts down his spoon or whatever, and then he keels over dead, right? And then Batman's like, "Oh my gosh!" And then the guy next to him keels over dead, and he looks around.
Everyone at the dinner,
everyone. It's like 30 couples that are at this thing, and every one of them dies.
40,
whatever.
40 couples, yeah.
The
food 80. That's right, 80 people in like one go.
In one night, because he poisoned the food with some sort of super toxin.
I didn't eat the moose. It's like you'd think there'd be one person who's like, I didn't really want the soup.
No. That's fair.
I'm a vegan.
Right.
One vegan, one who lives.
Yeah.
So like I said, that was a hard thing to
is,
swallow for me. Just
but
how
I mean, at the same time, like
high the
thing about it is like that device. It was one of those things where it really upped the skill level of the KG Beast.
It ups the stakes. It ups the stakes,
right? And not just the stakes. It's like like in the mass murder kind of thing, but the fact that like so that he's thinking outside of the box enough that he's thinking, okay, I need to not direct assault. I'm going to go with the poison route. I've got to develop the alternate identity to get in there, to get past security, the whole business. And that, so like the idea that
it's his sidekick. Guy, it's not him, it's his sidekick.
Is it the sidekick that actually did the cooking?
Yeah, it's his Iranian Shiite sidekick, yeah.
Right. But the
suicide bomber.
But right. So that's the idea that like we're dealing with this whole other level of
because Batman is expecting him to come in and try to take him out and to direct like attack, and Batman's like, I'll be there in disguise, I'll take him on, and there's no violent assault at all. It's just a poisoning that he wasn't expecting. And yeah, it's a spin because you're waiting for the Batman and KG Beast confrontation, and it doesn't happen. Instead, 80 people die. Yeah.
Right.
So that didn't sit well with me, and that's kind of the general gist of here. Is Batman's really just chasing this guy, and just and he just keeps getting away, and he keeps on killing more and more people, and I don't know, that just grates on me a bit. The second part, I won't go into depth on this, but obviously my second struggle point is the ending, and I'm sure that's not going to surprise a lot of people. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, right? The final.
Oh yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay.
And here's the thing: is I don't know if you want to spoil the ending, because I actually really enjoyed the whole thing, and I suggest it. But the one thing about the it seems like the whole piece is like 6 pages too short, right? Like it has this climax and this denouement that happens in 1 page.
Well, yeah, you're right. Yeah, it does kind of just there's like the afterward is,
and so like the brutality of the end of the fight. Well, which first of all, there's a cleverness to it that I really appreciated. But the brutality at the end of the fight is not the kind of brutality you'd think. It is a brutality out of an Edgar Allan Poe story. And,
it's the cask of Amontillado.
Yeah. and I really appreciated that, because it felt like a throwback to Detective 27, to be perfectly honest. To the very first Batman story. That's where that ending seemed to hit.
They had to they retconned that ending. Like it was such a moment that they had to basically go back and kind of undo it.
I never figured that Batman's actually killing him. I figured he's just and I'm sorry, we are kind of spoiling the ending. They're chasing each other. We don't have to get into everything, but Batman and the KGB finally have a confrontation
Can we say
in
can we save let's save that for a little bit. Let's lead up to that because I
Okay.
think it's no, you're right, and I don't want to cut you off, but like
Yeah.
I feel like if we
we haven't even introduced his real costume.
yeah,
So we
let's
should talk about that.
yeah, let's lead into that. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. So
we'll
here's
come back.
here's
We'll
the
come back.
real costume.
You can be the one who covers that.
All right.
And here's the thing. Okay, one thing about this costume, my familiarity with this costume was with the characters, of course, after the story from Robin 3. That was my first exposure to the story. Some 5 or 6 years after this came out. And instead of having the bare chest bars, they were the red stripes there instead of just being skin showing through.
Am I the only one who thinks he looks Jewish?
Who? The Beast?
Can you see it?
No.
Because of the throwing stars? Are they
the plate because he's covering up the other throwing star, you only see the one.
Okay.
And so the only
like the Star of David, I guess.
The only iconography, because he's just got the little red thing on his face, the only iconography on his outfit is just like it looks like he's got a Star of David, and it's just
I guess I can see that now that you pointed out. I had not thought about that at all.
And this is, by the way, this is the first shot of him in costume that we get.
Yeah, I mean, you'd seen his face mask under a fedora in the previous
right, yeah.
But as far as the whole costume with the nunchucks and the brass knuckles and everything, but yeah, I hadn't seen, so I saw the coloration in here, and I was just like, well, now that's a costume that's not quite doing its job.
I know, gosh,
Yeah.
this was a huge miss, and it's just I don't even know what the hell they were. This is why the only thing that defends it for me is there is that theory we were talking about earlier, which is they were clearly trying to channel the the pro wrestler idea for this archetype character.
Right.
We want to show his muscles. We want to show how ripped he is. And like because like a pro wrestler would wear something ish like. There are pro wrestlers who dress like this.
Yeah. There's not quite enough fringes, but yeah, we'll
so like that part almost is okay, but the rest no, it's not.
It just doesn't look like the practical wear of a person who's trying to carry out an assassination.
Yeah,
for the Russian government. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and the crazy thing is, so much of the rest of the whole book, I mean, his actions are so tactical that it does seem like the outfit takes away from that. But
oh gosh, yes. Which is later on, as you just mentioned, they basically give him a tactical outfit later. Like I think when he's fighting Robin and stuff, that's where they take him. That's where he ends up, and that's a much better fit for what this character is. But they were he looks like he's about to cut a promo with an oy vey. It's like one of those like worst wrestler promos ever. But he's a monster, and even in the first issue, he collects in the first 2 pages he collects I think 6 body bags, and then what are we? Is this 7 here or 8 at this point? I forget. But it's you lose track. Rhys looks frozen. Is he?
Oh, I thought you. Yeah, Rhys, are you there?
I think it's.
Oh, we lost him.
He'll be back in a second. Okay, so to give a short overview of the first issue, because this is a 4-part series. And in the first part, we get kind of an introduction to the fact that KGB is here to stop to kill the Star Wars program through Project Skywalker,
Right.
And that he has a list of I think 10 people that he needs to kill. All of them are either generals, scientists, or other administration who are integral to this the Star Wars program, famously, right? Ronald Reagan's anti-nuclear weapons defense program that was going to render nukes essentially useless. And it was one of the propaganda pieces that helped, that it is credited. I don't know, I'm sure it's debatable, but it is credited with helping to end the Cold War by pressuring the Soviet Union to dump more money into weapons development than they had.
Right. That was what the SALT treaty that Reagan walked out of. And I know a lot of people. I'm of that generation. That would have been about 16, 18, around the time these were happening. And yeah, a lot of people were like, "I can't believe he did that. He could have had the Nobel Peace Prize." And it's like, well, I think he wanted to actually win the Cold War, and because he was meeting with Gorbachev, and Gorbachev wanted him to end it because they would have to actually like start escalating that way, and they could not afford it. The Soviet Union could not afford it. So this is around that time, and it does make sense that if Russia was going to do something, they might try tactically taking out the guys who are running the thing. So it is not a bad idea for a plot like
Sure.
this. Is actually not a smart thing to do, but it would be an option if they can't get the U.S. to stop funding it.
It's a
Then
plausible.
it makes sense as a target. So this scene that's up now, I did like that they had already killed 2 people before they even figured out that this was going on. The top 2 of the guys from the SDI are dead. The one thing and this goes along with him using different tactics all the time instead of just like choking everybody he finds or breaking their neck. That one of them is a woman, and he changes her orange juice for the morning to be a tear gas, a gas that kills them. And I'm like, what if they decided not to have orange juice that morning?
Well, you have to know that they always have orange juice.
There were 2 bottles of orange juice though. What if they had the other one?
Well, that's a good question. I guess
they didn't want pulp. So I don't know. It's an odd choice because he could have just gone in the room and broken her neck and been done with it in the time it takes him to swap out a bottle of orange juice.
It is interesting. It is interesting that as much of a brute as they make this character, they or at least brutish in a certain way, because they're trying to make him that sort of threat to Batman on both the physical and intellectual level. He does these very, very clever subversive things that Batman struggles to keep up with. One time he uses an explosive doorknob.
Yeah.
It's very subtle. It's not like it's not like Joker where everything's going to be a giant birthday present.
But he's there. Couldn't he have just kicked the door in and killed the guy?
Well, I will see, and that's part of the fun of the exploding doorknob specifically is it was the only brass doorknob down the hallway, and like that kind of doesn't make sense in the real world, like in a movie sort of a way, but in a comic language way.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's one of the things that I thought was really fun, because in a comic language way that makes sense, right? And within the world of superhero comics, like that's the kind of thing where like it may not be perfect, but it like perfectly realistic in that way, but it's in the language of comics in a way that like fits really well with that.
Yeah.
But
why is he using all these coy little sneaky ways to kill people when he is capable of kicking that door in, going in, and killing the senator, and the time it takes doing all this?
The impression that I got from it was that way that they can't come up with an effective, because it's going to take a while to hunt down 10 people.
Yeah.
And so that way they can't come up with an effective counter plan for anyone. So that way if people do catch wind of what's going on, that they still can't compensate for it.
Yeah.
And so like the orange juice lady, like part of the whole deal was she was the only person that was left at the time where the American intelligence people couldn't find her because she hadn't shown up at work.
Right. Well, she'd gone to a boyfriend's house instead of her own house.
Yeah.
And they don't have cell phones.
But they didn't know who the boyfriend was. Right. That was that was the whole thing. The KGB and his like Russian agents, they figured out who the boyfriend was, and so they had it all.
Actually, it's the FBI agent who tells him.
Yeah, that's
because
true.
He's shadowy. But how did they figure out who he was? And I don't know. It's kind of questionable, but it's like, okay. So the one guy figured it out and told KGB.
So to keep things so the first issue we get the first couple of kills essentially, and Batman's like, all right, this guy means serious business. He has like an early encounter with him, and I think kind of discovers how much of a threat this guy is, and and that's kind of where the first issue ends. This guy's a real threat, and we know that he's a real threat because he's been able to kind of outpace Batman himself while also racking up quite an impressive body count. And it's only been 3 days of the total 10, but it's essentially his, for our main characters, it feels like the first day. Before we move on to the second issue, I did want to point out one piece of comic book brilliance, which is this page here. So this was just amazing, and I just couldn't not point it at, not like talk about it for a second. But just the idea that you have Robin perched on a gargoyle and he's eavesdropping on the agents, but we also have the gargoyle who looks like he's eavesdropping too. It's just a very nice piece.
He looks like he's bored. The gargoyle's going, huh.
So
I noticed that too. I thought that was amazing. I wanted to talk about it, so yay.
So one of the things about this story too, I want to go ahead and bring in is like
Sure.
This is one of the best Jason Todd stories.
Yeah. This
Right?
would be right before they killed him off.
Right
Yeah.
before they decide they're going to go ahead and start giving him the questionable, like when he starts having his like little mood swing that they do leading up to his death. And so this is one of the best Jason Todd stories when Jason Todd's got his own personality. Because like before the crisis, he was just sort of like the other Dick Grayson. And
Right.
after the crisis, they change his origin and they make him a little less happy-go-lucky, but he still got some of that pluck. And this was really, it was really fun. He was really fun in this. And I'm reading this and I'm like 88. This has to be just a few months before the story with the Russian ambassador and all that kind of stuff, and before Death in the Family. And
For those who don't know, there was a Russian ambassador who was like under protection, and then he like falls from a balcony, and it's implied that Robin killed him, but you don't know for sure. It built to that, and then the guy falls to his death, and yeah, you don't know if Jason Todd killed him. So for those who don't know, I'm sorry,
Right,
I'm just
right.
filling that in.
Yeah,
and then that led to him being killed off.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and I my suspicion is that they in addition to having some complexity in his character prior to that, in the revamp of his origin story, they also needed it to give a plausibility or a moral plausibility to maybe Jason's got it coming.
Yeah. Well, Jim Starlin is the one who oversaw the revamp of Jason Todd. When post-crisis, the story Did Robin Die Tonight, Jim Starlin is the one who wrote it. And it kind of wrote that whole thing of Batman coming back and the wheels are off of the Batmobile because they were swiped by Jason Todd, which, by the way, is totally unbelievable now as a revamped origin. It's like, there's no way he comes back and the tires are off his car. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think of Max Allan Collins was brought in to write some of those issues after that too. So
yeah.
Well, anyway, point being, Jason Todd was pretty fun in this book. So
yeah. He's pretty straightforward. I mean, there isn't too much time spent on him, but yeah, he's not a pain in the butt.
No.
So yeah. But yeah, we saw that story where Batman's showing up for one of the SDI guys, and he sees KG Beast throwing him off the roof. It's his first glimpse of KG Beast, and he wants to rescue the guy so much because he actually knows him. Bruce Wayne knows this guy. He's actually had contact with him, and I'm kind of surprised that Batman, being Batman, doesn't ascertain within seconds that what he's got is a dead body as but he's falling and doing everything he can to try to save his impact. And he's like grabbing wires and trying to catch outcroppings on the buildings and wires and I forget what else, a flagpole. And he actually grabs a flagpole and goes, oh, nope, that's going to rip my arm out. And so he keeps like trying to stop his momentum all the way down. And it's only when he hits, he's like, oh, this guy was dead before I even arrived. And that kind of takes the fun out of such a cool sequence where he worked so hard to try to save this person's life.
And that's one of my, that's kind of why I didn't like this story so much, is that kept happening. It was like the moments were like, oh yeah, Batman's gonna, and it was like, no, actually he got away again. Or like I said, in the ending, we'll get to that. It just felt like it felt like the air kept on being let out of the balloon.
Right.
Out of the Batman balloon. And I'm not saying that there's nothing, you can't ever do that with Batman, but personally, I wasn't enjoying it.
Yeah. Batman's like, I think one of the best sequences, and I'm not sure if this is the second or the third, is where they're in the elevator. Was that the second or the third issue?
That's the third.
Yeah,
third? Okay, I'm jumping ahead. But I think that's an intense sequence. I like that one. But yeah, so we're at the end of the first one is that the one, the end of the first one is where he's capturing, he manages to save his buddy, but he doesn't. And because the guy's already dead. Yeah.
Exactly. And then another dude gets killed by being electrocuted at his computer console by a mop bucket.
Yep.
Oh, the deadly janitor. And then and this ends it's Bruce and Jason right there on the top of a thing at the end of it. Bruce says he's out there somewhere, Robin. It won't be easy finding him. He's a faceless pro and has over 10 million people to hide among. That's Gotham City's pretty big.
Yeah, 10 million people.
10 million people.
Yeah.
How do we play it this time? Jason says. Bruce says the only way possible. We make him come to us, and we hope we survive the experience. Dun dun dun. dun.
We got some feedback from chat here. Fizz says part of the reason I think KG Beast doesn't work as a Batman villain is that Batman doesn't seem like he needs a bullseye in his rogues gallery. He might have worked as a Green Arrow villain. And Jim Tuner says if KG Beast had been more of a spy or an assassin driven by politics, it would have been better. So that's some feedback on that character. I'm on the one hand, I have to say I kind of like that Batman has different tiers of his rogues gallery. He's got the you have your first stringers. But I like that you can tell stories and you can have a brute and not always have it be Bane. I think it's a shame when certain writers all just gravitate towards the same, top tier character and forget the fact that there's a whole host of them. A recent show that's done a really good job with this, for example, is Young Justice. They made Sportmaster like an actual threat and someone you kind of like was having fun watching.
He was also a genuine threat in that Stargirl TV series.
So it's neat that it's neat that we don't always have to rely on it's got to be Bane or somebody. So in theory, I like the idea of a character like KG Beast, but I don't know. This story didn't quite do it for me in a lot of ways, but there's still a lot that praiseworthy about it. If you want to share my screen, we can get a little bit into issue 2 with the a very funny.
I'd like to take on what Fizz Chozo just said, though. He says, why is Bane the brute? Well, Bane isn't a brute so much. Killer Croc has always been the dumb muscle. Actually, he wasn't. When Killer Croc first appeared, he was the crime boss running Gotham. He was the new guy on the scene who was taking over Gotham's underworld. And he wasn't a dummy. It was kind of later that they just made him a dumb monster.
Seems that what you're saying though has happened to Bane as well. It happened to KG Beast as well.
Yeah.
There is a common theme of taking those big muscle characters and reducing them to only one trait, which is their muscle. So only certain writers, I think, are able to they're either cognizant of or able to wield them on multiple levels of the physical and the intellectual, because there are certain writers who have just made KGBs just kind of a dumb Rusky who can barely speak, full sentences. And then there have been some people who have portrayed Bane in the same way. Obviously, Killer Croc, same thing. So there seems to be a trend over time to make a lot of these, to reduce these characters.
Basically, when anybody but the creator starts doing them.
Right. Yeah. That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Flanderization.
I was going to say, basically the Flanderization effect. But here we've got, I think this is a funny moment. Because again, this guy's supposed to be a beast, but here he is sneaking in with a trench coat while still wearing his outfit so that he can swap out a bottle of orange juice.
Right. And like I say, they're sleeping in the other room, and the time it takes him to do this, he could have just gone in and strangled both of those people easily, or sliced their necks, or whatever. It's kind of, why is he going to this length? And he's taking the risk that they might not have orange juice. They might get up and go, "Oh, we overslept," and run out the door.
I know, right?
Yeah, now I want orange juice.
I know, yeah. You're selling that orange. Everyone, go buy some orange juice. So
I'm actually going to let you talk for a minute. I do need liquid, so I will be back in a second.
You're going to get you a glass of orange juice?
It isn't just because of the orange juice. I've needed it for 10 minutes. I'll be right back.
Now it can't be denied. Orange juice.
Yeah, I know, right?
The call of the orange juice.
Call the orange juice. All right, so
yeah, and Fizz, you are right. Bane is supposed to be intelligent, and I think that's part of the thing. Is many of these type of brute characters are supposed to be intelligent, and I think that it's just too easy to write dumb guys. I think
it's easy. It takes work to write a multifaceted character. It is way easier to be generous about it. It is way easier to write a character with one trait, or to reduce a character to one trait, especially if you're doing like an ensemble cast in a book, to make those characters have multifacets, as opposed to being like, this character's comic relief for this, whatever I'm writing. This character is going to be the muscle. It's way more straightforward from a writing perspective to just reduce a character.
Well, and it's become really trendy in the last 10 years, I suppose, to really view every ensemble cast as just like a D&D troupe. So you've got, the healer, you've got, what the tank, the rogue, the whatever. And so
Ocean's 11 did that a bit too.
Yeah, definitely.
You're the blank.
Right. And I mean, and sometimes in heist film that works because everybody gets to be snarky because that's the nature of heist films. Mm-hmm. So then you just have how that shakes out. But anyway, so moving on a little bit on here. I don't know. I know that your time. Sorry, Hutch got me laughing there with his little reaction gift there. I don't know what it was, but man, it really just cracked me up. So anyhow, but I know Twitless, your time is limited, so I don't know that we want to go beat by beat through everything.
I think we do broad strokes for the issues there. Just gonna hit some of the highlights, so we don't have to do full recaps. But
sure. I know we have found ourselves. The only reason I bring it up is I know we found ourselves already going a bit far afield.
Sure, yeah. So to give it the overview is issue 2, I would say the overview of most of the issues kind of follows a similar pattern, which is, Batman tries to catch KGB stays at least one, if not two steps ahead of him, while
KG Beast, he's so cagey.
Mm-hmm. And he just keeps racking up the body count.
He's one KG Beast, that guy.
Oh gosh. Hey, Cartoonicus would have loved that.
Yeah, you can watch it rerun.
Yep. So this is right after he kills 80 people, and Batman kind of corners them, thinks he corners them, and they get away. So that's kind of the general gist, thrust of the book is that kind of that chase. But as hard as Batman tries,
one of the things I want to point out about this particular scene, they're escaping the Iranian guy. He's jumping in after killing all the people. He's jumping in the delivery truck. The Beast is using the gun to lay down cover fire. Batman jumps on top, and he's getting shot straight through the top of the cabinet, right? The top of the container, and we've got bullets going right through the Batman's cape, right? And it's crazy to me because I have gotten so used to the idea about Batman's cape being armored, so used to the idea of pliable body armor on the thing that this version of Batman is just wearing like silk tights and a leather
Right.
cape, and like that's it. And
Right.
so,
This is a year before Tim Burton's molded plastic suit, which kind of became an excuse for Batman to have a body armor thing.
right.
The rise of the
Yeah.
tactical.
Right. And so
idea.
it's crazy. I mean, like so Batman's using his cape as distraction, and it's suffering some things, but like there's no weave in it. There's nothing. It's just like a leather cape. It's just and so after the scene, and Batman saves the day, and he avoids running over the school bus full of children and all this stuff, and Robin pulls up in the Batmobile and she says, "Batman, what do you need?" And Batman says, "I just need a new cape."
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
I was trying to figure out what happened because I thought for a moment that he was doing one of those things where he takes off his mask and cape and throws it and it takes all the bullets while he's somewhere else. But then I look at it, it's like, no, he is up on the roof. So why does he say he's shooting where he thinks I am? And he's actually getting the cape. It's like, but you can't see up
right.
above. So I don't know that sequence really works for me. That's
right.
all I'll say.
I was only bringing it up to talk about the fact that like
his cape is so breakable
in the comic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like we're looking at like everything Batman is playing on is there's more vulnerability in the whole thing. Yeah. So that's all I was gonna say. But
okay.
Yep.
KG Beast definitely looks better from behind in this series.
Yeah.
Most of the shots where you see him from behind don't quite look as cringe because that outfit.
It's the belly button hole in his outfit.
Good gosh, it's just not a good outfit.
Yeah.
This is the issue that ends with a fight where it's very clearly Batman at disadvantage, and this is when he basically says, "I've run into someone who's better at this game than I am," and this is one of the, again, this is the kind of like the proto Bane, if you think about it in that regard. This character who's been introduced, it's like this guy outclasses me, and Batman obviously has run into characters who have had an advantage over him before, but to have him basically say this guy outclasses me at being me, he's not just a dark mirror version or anything. He's just like a better form of what I do. This is definitely a ratcheting up of the stakes, which is where they were going to end up with Bane.
Another thing that this shows, in addition to the costume just being, clothing, is Batman still has to throw his grapple. He's still whipping and throwing his grapple instead of having a gun that launches it, which is another thing that came out of the Tim Burton films and was kind of integrated into the comics more.
And it was almost immediately too. I mean, as far as that whole goes, and they got put into Batman the Animated Series, and now it's just assumed that we're dealing with a mechanical thing.
Yeah. Well, really, how many stories can he throw it? I mean, he is in a city where the difference between one building and the next might be 40 stories. So
yeah.
He's got a real good throwing arm.
Yeah.
Well, he is player. Yeah.
So, if this is accurate, Batman would find out who the KGB agents are in Hollywood, but we digress. That's amazing. And we also have Nick has joined us, who hasn't been by in a while. Hey, Nick. Hey, guess what I got in the store the other day?
I was gonna say, Winnie the Pooh Demon Hunter just came out, I believe.
Yeah.
In stores now.
In stores now. Get a comic book at a shop near you with my name in the front of it.
Mm.
So I just had ideas. That's all. Nick did all the heavy lifting.
So that's basically the setup for issue 2. Issue 3 is where again we get more of a ramp up. I believe that's when he starts killing. He starts off by supposedly killing off the CIA agent and the general. So he's able to reach more and more targets you wouldn't expect him to be able to get. Like, so it's, he's getting scientists. Okay. But now suddenly it's like, I can get a general, a CIA agent, and like a senator. And that puts him in
they're trying to sneak him out on an unscheduled flight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it puts him in a new class of like, unstoppable in a way, because it was like if he can take out politicians while they're supposedly under guard, then how do you stop this man?
Right.
So that's
With
kind
a
of
rocket launcher.
Yeah.
Well, that's what he uses while wearing his goofy fedora.
And so we've pretty much covered a lot of the stuff that's in here. The exploding doorknob on the hotel, which is where they are keeping the senator and the congressman. And the interesting thing is that when one of the attacks fails, I believe the doorknob does kill the person inside, and they start moving the other guy. So they kill the congressman. The senator is the one they move, I think.
Yep.
And they take him to the elevator. Batman objects and says, no, it should be the stairs. And he's like, no way. I'm in charge here. We're taking the elevator. And one of the guys says, I'll stay behind. And we assume now that that's the traitor guy, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's hard to tell because they all run together. But I would have made them more distinctly, give one a mustache and one,
right,
an eye
something
patch.
so you can tell them, yeah.
So,
but they all get in the elevator stops, and KGB starts throwing cinder blocks down 15 stories onto the elevator, and which is an amazing, it's like, that is terribly, deadly. And
it is, but I don't think it would work out. I hate to quibble, but I'm pretty sure that if you drop, they would be lethal if they fell on your person. But I'm pretty sure if they hit an elevator, they would just like disintegrate. Like I don't think they would. I don't think they would be artillery shells like he's describing them.
I'm not sure they have the power to go through the top of an elevator.
Yeah.
They dent it. They dent the hell out of it for sure. I'm just saying that that they would basically atomize, I think.
There's the mythical trap door in the top of elevators that doesn't actually exist.
Of course.
So that's one of those what do you call them, tropes that isn't true.
Right.
So but Batman gets out, starts climbing the wire using his hands. I guess he doesn't have a grapple on him. And by the way, there's a scene where he takes a mask off. He's like playing a cop, and he pulls the rubber mask off, and he's wearing his Batman suit with the ears underneath it. I don't get how that works, but they obviously didn't want him pulling it off, and it's being Bruce Wayne. Then he pulls up the towel. So yeah.
Or putting another smaller mask over the top of his other mask.
He could have just pulled his cowl over the fake mask and kept at it.
or pull the cowl up and then pull the other mask off the bottom.
Yeah, something like
Mission Impossible style.
That probably would have been hard. Yeah, in a movie, you probably
hard to convey.
That would have been hard to convey in comics. Yeah, without a whole bunch of extra panels they probably didn't want to spend.
Yeah. But I don't know how those ears fit under
but
that.
Yeah, but good point. I kind of just glazed past that. Certain things you just accept.
I just laughed and turned the page. That's all I did there.
Well, it's funny where everyone draws their line, right? Because like Hutch noticed the cowl, and then that's like, hey, this is that's not right. And then I'm like, there's no way cinder blocks would have the force of artillery shells. So everyone has their line of.
I think it would go through the top of an elevator. I don't know that those are made all that sturdy. I mean, aside from the sturdiness of supporting the thing, you start throwing. Are they really made of thick steel that can withstand?
I
think it's the way he describes it. He says they're like concrete artillery shells, and it was like they're not. These things are concrete shatters. Like you drop them off a regular building and they shatter into pieces. Like,
side note, do you know why they call them cinder blocks?
Why?
They use industrial ash in the concrete to make it harder.
Okay,
cool. Yeah. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That plays.
Yep.
So Batman tracks this guy, and of course he gets away again because that's
Nick says, having worked in an elevator, it really shouldn't bust through.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We have an elevator expert.
Elevator expert. Who could have imagined we would have one? There you go.
Nick, here's your challenge for your next mini comic. You have to do the story of an elevator repairman. I'm giving you an assignment.
So this moment here is it's important to mention the end of this issue because KG Beast gets cornered. Batman thinks he's outsmarted him, and that axe becomes kind of an important, foreshadowing moment.
Foreshadowing.
Yep.
Yes.
Because Batman does this clever little thing. Haha, I've caught you by using a rope. I got your arm. The only way you could escape me is for you to cut off your own hand. And obviously you won't know he does.
Why doesn't he cut the rope after his hand? He's got an axe. He could just go whack on the rope and cut Batman loose.
It's really thick rope.
See, I mean, as much as I love that moment, it was in rereading it, I went, wait a minute.
You're right. You should
see that there's some.
Yeah, but look how
right
awesome this. Look how awesome this Cthulhu.
You're right. It should have been a steel cable. Like that would have worked because then it would have been.
Yeah.
Because then it would have been like it's going to take him 10 minutes to try and chop through that. Oh, his arm is. Yeah, that's a missed opportunity.
Well, look how awesome.
Well, it is a cable he's sliding down, isn't it? I mean, it looks like rope to us, but it was a cable or a wire.
Hold on.
That they were sliding down.
He says cable. Yeah, it is a cable. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, the coloring is off. Okay.
Yeah.
It's colored like a rope. I blame the colorist for that.
You're right. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Oh, that's too bad. It's Adrian Waugh.
The colorist?
Yeah.
It's a minor quibble.
You don't have. It's a shame to throw shade at such a good colorist. That's all I'm saying.
It's a minor quibble, but
maybe you should feel bad about what you just said.
I don't feel bad about it because he colored the building a color he could have colored the cable. So that's why he made it the other color. Yeah. Actually.
Oh.
No, so it ends with him, which Storyteller mentioned something really important, which is that it does really show this idea that he is so committed to his crazy mission that it really leans into the unstoppable aspect of him. And this is one thing I'm going to say. One thing that I think KG Beast did better than Bane. Most of what we see in this character is just kind of like, oh, this is just a prototype of what Bane will do better. But this is one aspect that I think KG Beast edges Bane out, which is the fact that this guy is so bloody unstoppable from a psychological and even physical point of view that this guy will hack off parts of his own body to like get to get to his next objective. And that's a level of commitment that's so insane that makes you go, holy crap.
Well, and that's one of the aspects that's different too about them too, right? Is like KG Beast is supposed to be a brilliant jobber, but he's still a jobber, right? He's on a mission. He believes in the cause. His cause is not as articulated as it could have been, and Jim Tooner pointed out earlier that it could have been. There are things that could have been in the story to articulate his perspective of his cause, but he was given a mission, and even his boss is telling him not to do it is not going to dissuade him from his mission. As I joked earlier in the stream, dude, I already started. It's a done deal. I can't stop it. I already started it. And that thing is, but Bane is the mastermind. So Bane is not going to put himself into peril because he's serving himself, not the mission. And that is one of those differences in there.
Yeah.
If Bane were put in this, well, see, the problem is that Bane would just use Venom to get himself out of the situation. I feel like if Bane were put into a similar situation, he would not cut off his own arm. I don't think.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Bane's tough, but he wouldn't do that.
But that's what I'm saying, because that wouldn't serve his interest. Yeah, but the Beast is not serving his interest. He's serving the interest of the mission. And
this is a major moment for this story. And one of the reasons why this story is celebrated is just it was a shocker at the time.
Even reading back through it, even our discussion about could he have gotten himself out of this another way is evidence of the shocker nature of this scene.
Yeah. In 1988, I got to say, a 4-parter was still a major thing. We didn't have that's totally for the all the lousy kids out there, this is something unheard of where everything is 6 parts long. It's like this was a major story. This was a 4-part story, and whenever they did a 4-part story, that was usually a major thing. Like when they did Death in the Family was 4 parts.
When you think about because even like you look at like the tech backups and in the Adventure Comics Aquaman stories where they were picking up where the previous issue's 12-pager had left off, right? And it was doing it, Prince Valiant style, where they're telling this long story. It's still every 12-pager was self-contained. It just had elements that would bleed over from month to month. Right. It wasn't like, so you're getting this macro story if you're reading every month, but every monthly story is still of a micro, where you're still having beginning, middle, and end that was self-contained within that. And so, and that was true if it was Aquaman, the Robin backups in tech, all that kind of stuff was going on. But for the whole issue to be continued, even the Batman Superman story, Dark Knight over Gotham, was only 3 issues.
Yeah.
And that was like the year before this.
Right. Yeah. So this is this was a big 4-parter. I mean, this was a raving popular story at the time. And I know we have our deficiencies of it as we sit here and analyze it, but that could be true of a lot of Batman stories. Yeah. There's just, as in terms of what it was trying to accomplish, it was a big one. And I just, this sequence where the big attack in the hotel, and he goes out, he almost stops the guy, and the guy cuts off his own hand to get away. And then the thing that bothers me at the end is when they go to the tech guy to say, I need a special weapon, basically something to replace his arm. And I'm like, well, they're going to kill him. And the very next issue, it opens with the guy's dead body. And I'm like, well, they killed him. Yeah. They're not going to leave him alive. If I was a guy like this, I would have like one of those jewelers security things where you have to come in through the door and you have to slide the money here, and I will slide the item through here, and this is all bulletproof.
Right. Or I put like a dead man switch in the arm, and I'd be like, "Oh, by the way, my heart stops, you explode."
Well, and the fun thing about this though is even with that whole setup and with the engineer's eventual death, the thing that I enjoyed about it was that it set up the stakes for what is this prosthetic going to be, right? It's not just like a Luke Skywalker hand that that looks just like something. It's got to be something else.
It's going to be special.
So when he comes out with groovy, he comes out with that
say that with a Russian
Army knife for an arm, I was instantly like, I'm intrigued again. Yeah. And of course I knew what it was before, because like by the time I was exposed to the character, he'd always had that arm, right? So
I lost my train of thought. I do like that that we're pointing out the kind of historic, Hutch, I really appreciate you pointing out the historical context for the story, because it's helpful to think about what comics were at the time, what Batman was at the time, and how much these things changed. Oh, that was the thing I was going to say. I was going to say one thing that I think makes this story, it's almost quaint by today's standards, but was such a big difference probably for then, is that, the Riddler was not going to hack off his own arm with an axe. This was not the Batman that a lot of people, the world of Batman, the villains that Batman would have faced. And we definitely see this, I think, in the 80s and 90s in general, as TV became more violent, as the Cold War and people started, the imagination became more violent. As Mike Barron has said, the country as a whole, there was a lot of corruption and violence in the country. And so these things found outlet in stories like this for the first time. And so nowadays, if a Batman villain hacked off his own arm, we'd be like, oh, look, Scott Snyder's at it again, or Jeff Johns. It would not be a huge shock. I'm sorry.
The new 52 issue of Batman, the first issue of Batman for the new 52, right? And the Joker like removes his own face, and everybody
right. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
everybody was just like, "Oh, this is so cool," and I'm just like,
"Whatever." Yeah.
Do you like just live on a constant diet of like marijuana and ho-hos? Like, what kind of a person are you that you think this is? Oh, this is so cool. It's just
I think it was them. Yeah, it was them extending the Dark Knight film, and it was just like you didn't have to try and outdo that.
Yeah,
yeah. No, Batman actually has a villain named Jane Doe who slices off people's faces and wears them as disguises. And it's like, no. Hannibal Lecter got away with that because he was pretending to be somebody whose face was butchered. Because that does not work. He's holding it in place, going, ow, ow, and there's blood everywhere. Because you can't. That does not actually work. Doing that, but it's like everything has to be. It's like everything's worse than Silence of the Lambs when you're reading a Batman comic now.
Right, exactly. but at the time it was like, Batman fought, the Riddler, the Mad Hatter, and stuff like that. And this was a shift. It was like, oh, this is a Cold War nightmare that this guy is fighting. And the violence of our times made manifest. And so it's definitely, and the fact that Batman is so behind the ball and dealing with it is also kind of adds to the sort of horror of the situation. You know what I mean? So like
it's so like you always have people that are just like that'll come out of the woodwork anytime they're getting ready to make a movie, and they're like, well, why don't we make an R-rated Batman? That'll be really cool. It's like, can't you just go watch Dirty Harry and leave me the heck alone?
Yeah,
I mean, there already are things for that. Batman doesn't need to be that,
So before we jump to issue 4, I think it would be great to Star had an interesting question we should probably answer. She says, what about if a heroic character sacrifices an arm or a leg for the mission? What makes it different than KG Beast's hacking his own limb off?
Well, I think the difference is the righteousness of the mission, right? Like, so if it's a situation where like the like Batman's in a death trap, he's holding a baby and his arm is stuck in a bear trap, right? And if he lets go of the baby, then to undo the trap to save his arm, they can't get out in time, or he can't get the baby out in time. So Batman says, "That's it. I'm just gonna break my arm off so we can get out of here in time to save the baby." That's heroic. But the nature of the KG Beast's mission is to kill everybody, especially Reagan.
I would say part of it is the difference in just the fact that the KG Beast is not from the U.S. There's the national perspective there, but I would also say that it goes past that, and I would say it's the difference between a hero and a fanatic. A hero acts even if the superheroes that we see are kind of impossible figures and have impossible values. The idea that's what makes them aspirational, right? Something to aim for, even if it's something that's impossible to hit or even impossible to even try to hit. But the idea that you would sacrifice yourself for protecting God and country, and specifically in the preservation of life, which is what American superheroes very much lean into. It's one of the reasons why Batman has his no-kill rule, more or less. Whereas the KG Beast is fanatically devoted to a mission of death, and that it's going to play out differently.
Yeah, KG Beast needs to save himself so he can keep killing. Batman needs to save himself so he can stop people from getting killed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there is, I mean, gosh, I've been watching the Cold War series on Daily Wire Plus. I forget the name of the guy who's put
Bill Whittle.
Bill Whittle. Thank you. And he was going on about the room, this one building that they have that anybody who goes in just doesn't come back out. And it's like the KGB did deal out death in mass numbers, and so the KGB is something.
La Bianca.
Yeah, and that just doesn't, convey it to our modern ears. Maybe it's lost some of its threat. That KG Beast, the name KGB, was like,
Mhm. I would argue
it's hard to explain.
I could.
I think there's something to be said for that with us
Yeah.
Cold War kids. I mean, people laugh about like the duck and cover stuff, and yeah, that was silly. But dude, when we were kids, like we knew like that was a possibility. Like, mutually assured destruction was something that we worried about.
So without going too hard into like horseshoe theory or anything, I would argue and say that, when we open the hood of the CIA's activities, I think that they may not have been as bad as the KGB in some respects, but there's so much blood on their hands as well that it's the idea that they were just the good guys is kind of.
That's definitely oversimplistic,
right?
But I mean, like, because there could be different, but there's also there's a level of scale.
Yeah, the KGB being really horrible doesn't make the CIA angels. I wasn't saying that. I don't know.
I wasn't saying. I'm not saying you were saying that. I was just pointing out. I was pointing out just for the sake of argument. That it's the more we find out about the CIA, the less I like them.
Oh yeah, we should definitely ride them out of town on a rail. I'm not standing up for.
It's kind of weird having the KGB or the CIA guy in here being, actually pretty likable guy, and the FBI's are really all annoying.
Well, and one of the things too is there's in issue 2 there's this really great conversation between the CIA guy and
his Russian
the KGB, not the KGBs, but the KGB agent, and. You could tell that like they're both like honest dealers that just disagree about a thing, and it's really, or at least there's portrayed that they're honest dealers. There's some question about who the mole inside of the operation is, and that's a question. But they have this conversation betwixt them that's like, it seems like a really genuine conversation where two people just don't agree
about the Strategic Defense Initiative,
about the nature of the SDI,
Wars,
which basically would just be the Iron Dome for America.
Yeah. Well, there's in the context of this story, they're basically talking about a bunch of laser stuff. So which in the real world, I think a lot of it was looking at doing Iron Dome, but there would have to be like thousands and thousands of missiles floating around the sky
because we're huge
and
America's enormous.
Yeah, and then because of the nature of orbits, there would have to be tons more because there would be tons of them that would be in a useless place at the time. So I was watching a video about what they called smart rocks, and then they called it brilliant pebbles, and neither of them worked at all. But the basic idea being that if you put a salt shaker in front of a missile, it'll wipe out the missile. All you do is need to get that salt shaker into that spot. But that's the hard part.
Yeah, you're hitting a bullet. You're hitting a bullet with another bullet,
which they've done with the Iron Dome, but trying to do that on a world scale,
something as big as America.
Yeah.
America is like 300 Israels. Right,
Patriot missiles and the Iron Dome are kind of like the first steps, and even they've taken a long time to get right. But trying to do that, but that all did come out of SDI. I mean, if we hadn't been doing that, none of that stuff would have really been developed. So, anyway, that's just history for people who don't know where this came from.
No, I appreciate the context.
This is a rather fair portrayal of Reagan, given given Jim Starlin's politics and Denny. Although Denny is a well-known liberal, but he was always fair in dealing with whoever the writers were and how they, he never did anything radically lefty, except for his run on Green Arrow, but that was what it was. he never did that with Batman though. So he always
didn't he? I think he also did some stuff with The Question that was kind of
sure. But that's more like his playground type thing. But he always saw Batman as being not just his to play with, So
I respect that. I will give respect where it's due. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because in a few years past this, we're going to get, Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns version of Reagan, which is, very much a satirical take on it. And I thought it was very interesting that this comic And I think is it post Vietnam where the turn in comics tends to get really negative towards Republicans for quite a while?
Probably.
I don't know.
Because but I was pretty shocked that we got such a positive. I mean, I don't worship the guy, but it portrays Reagan as a reasonable person.
Yeah.
Mostly
And
because
this is
he's on
after Iran-Contra. This is 88.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it is a rather startlingly fair portrayal of him.
And one of the things that's great about this comic, too, is that, like, the FBI agent who's, sus, is just like, oh, Batman, you can't trust him. And Reagan is like, oh, I don't know. I think that Batman guy might have something worth listening to.
You seem like a professional. I like that's kind of a dig.
I like the cut of your jib, Batman.
Yeah.
Although I have to ask, is this Alfred at this point? Because it's revealed that this is Alfred in a mask. So
there is an Alfred. I don't necessarily. The question is when. I don't necessarily think at this point.
I don't think it's this point. I think it's just after this.
Okay. Because there's also a moment where actually the what's his name? Commissioner Gordon subs in for, was it for Reagan or for
Reagan? Yeah,
he subs in for Reagan.
He doesn't shave off the mustache.
Yeah, he turns around and he's just wearing a Reagan wig.
What's funny is how much Aparo's rendering of Gordon looks like Bolton, the guy from the UN in the 2000s. That white mustache is like just perfect. You don't know who I'm talking about. It's okay.
I lost my train of thought.
That's all right.
So this might, it could be now that you got me thinking. I'd have to double check. This either is or is not actually Reagan. But either way, they're still kind of portraying him in a fair way, which is interesting. And not only that, but this is the crux here is the RNC. And so they don't. Batman has I think a statement about darn you politicians in general, because people are dying. But in today's day and age, having an RNC in a comic, it would play out very different. I actually I read Vaughn's.
These days it would say 80 RNC members dead. Yay!
I was gonna say I read Ex Machina, which tried to be as fair as they could, and even then it was kind of dissing on some of the Republicans. This one basically just says, "Hey, the RNC is a thing, and we got to stop the villains who want to blow it up." And it was just, wow, that's interesting. So they put their plan in motion, and this is basically the turning point where they really start foiling KG Beast's plans. So they pretty much prevent, I think, him killing anybody from this point out. No, that's not entirely true.
There's a bunch of FBI agents that get killed.
Yeah, at the very end. But so they set a trap for him. And this actually, who was it who brought up that Batman is basically wearing just his
It was I was talking about it. Yeah.
So they make a special point of the fact that Batman is wearing a bulletproof vest over his costume. So this is definitely, this is that pre-moment of when the Bat costume was not in any way bulletproof. He catches a bullet to the arm or shoulder, I think. Anywho, he sets out alone to have kind of a final confrontation with KG Beast in the Gotham sewers. And that's kind of like the ultimate climax of our story. And this is that. Now, Hutch, I'm going to let you take it away there for a second. Since
I would, by the way, you had mentioned this was like around the time of Dark Knight. Dark Knight Returns was actually 2 years earlier than this, although it's set in an alternate future type thing. So, but that introduced the whole idea of him. The whole yellow Batman image is because that's where he's got a chest plate, and that was
right. That's 86. Yeah,
it's an 86, and that really did make its way over. It's like that's not a bad idea for him to always have that, even before they came up with the whole body armor thing. Like the whole entire suit is body armor nowadays. But yeah, anyway, yes, this is the face off in the sewers, which just builds and builds over several pages of Batman chasing past dead bodies of CIA guys and FBI guys, and the KG Beast is just offing everybody he runs into. And Batman at one point actually uses a dead body to throw it at the KG Beast in order to save himself. And like I say, it's really pretty brutal, and it's building up to this epic confrontation. You're just waiting for them to, both get to some spot where they face off and have a big martial arts contest between them. And
Okay.
and so this leads to, if you want to keep going, the KG Beast goes into a room and picks up a nearby bar and says, "All right, now we'll face each other one-on-one." And Batman says, "Don't really need to." And he backs up and shuts the door and barricades it and just keeps the guy trapped in there. Now, I didn't expect that this means like he never goes back and checks on him, but he's got all these building materials right there. He just secures him in there. There's no need to go back until the guy's like lost some fight, or he comes back he could come back and capture the guy, but he tells this guy that you won't have to worry about him anymore. And I think I just saw it as he doesn't need the CIA to be dealing with KG Beast.
It could be. It could
Yeah.
be.
I mean, you can maybe interpret it that way. The implication is that he's basically going to, he just cask of Amontillado the guy.
Yeah. I can't get behind that as even being his intent. I'm sorry. It's just, but I do like that he's like, at one time I would have thought that we'd need to face each other, but nah. And it's like everybody's waiting for the long martial arts fight, and Batman's like, "No, wait a minute. There's some wood here."
So personally, I've got a few things to say about this. First off, KGB ends up with a gun sword arm, which is the most, even though it's not quite yet the 90s, that's the most 90s thing ever. So we're just prefiguring the 90s.
He cuts off his arm and he ends up with a Swiss Army knife. It's great.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's the most Rob Liefeld thing that Rob Liefeld didn't come up with.
Do you think Rob Liefeld read this and was like, all comics should be this?
Yes,
would not surprise me. But two things. On the one hand, I will concede that there's something clever about Batman kind of subverting our expectations here. But I will say that after 4 issues, 4 whole issues, I wanted to see Batman put the final beat down on this guy. And I did feel a little cheated out of that.
Especially since he's been losing at every attempt to defend the life of all these people.
Correct. But
here's the thing.
Part of me really needed to see that, and I didn't like that. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm disappointed.
So for my take, I understand where you're coming from, but for mine, the page turn, he's like, where it's like, "That's it, come and take me," and Batman's like, "No, I don't think so." That hit me so awesome. I was just like, yeah, because like the other thing is like Batman's been outfought. He's not just been outfought; he's been outfought in every other page of this comic. So for Batman to realize, I've just lured this man into a trap because I know where all of the hidey holes are, and he's never getting out of here again. I was like,
I don't know. It didn't hit for me. And they had, like I said, they retconned it later, and they retconned it to be that Batman told the police where he was. And not only that, by the time the police got there, he'd already escaped.
Yeah.
And it was just like, wah, wah. And
I don't like.
I feel like this is the spot where they needed 6 more pages and they only had 2. And that, which we talked about, that he basically gets back in his car and tells Alfred to take off the Reagan mask, and
which is that a Breakpoint reference? I don't know.
I don't think so. Point Break.
Point Break. Yeah.
Wasn't Point Break 89?
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't think it was a reference here. No, I think Even if they came out the same year, they wouldn't have watched
Yeah,
Point
it's
Break
just something
before
in the
making this. So
must
yeah.
be Reagan masks must just be something in the wind then.
Oh, there were Reagan masks and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, I mean, and he would. I
Yeah,
mean,
Point Break was 91.
Batman would be using a real good mask, not a rubber, store-bought rubber mask. It's just
Fair. That's
yeah.
fair.
They always use really good, good masks that look like real people.
So I don't like that we got cheated out of that final fight. After 4 issues, I needed to. It's cool that he did a clever thing.
Mm-hmm.
I would have been fine with him locking the door, even more or less, even temporarily.
He locked the door.
I'm fine with him locking the door. I still needed to see more of a beatdown. I needed to see him own the guy or something. I don't know. That after 4 issues, it was rough. The second point is the implication, that look that he gives the CIA agent of it's almost like Batman is he basically says, I would have done it in the past, but I'm realizing something very different. There's no reason for me to risk my life coming there after you. So he's kind of rethinking the way he does business.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's the mode he's in. And then when he comes out, it almost looks like he's rethought his general no kill kind of a rule, and is you know what, make an exception for this monster. He can starve to death. And I just, that did not sit well with me at the ending of this story. So I actually kind of appreciate that they retconned it, just because it's okay, he called the cops later, and
I feel that he should have been with the cops when they capture him.
Right. Duh. Yeah.
Yeah. And because we've seen him wade through cops, the cops that weren't ready for something like the KG Beast. And so Batman should be there, but it should be about 4 days later, and he should throw in a bunch of gas first.
He should have cameras installed watching seismic things to make sure that there's surveillance, and then he should go in with armor and a taser, a whole bunch of tasers, and just electrify the crap out of it. Anyway, superhero stuff, it's fine, but I will say that
what are you laughing at?
Oh, just the way Twitless said
superhero
that.
Stuff,
superhero stuff.
It's not all gonna be, that's fine. The thing for me, it did not leave me with the best feeling regarding the ending. And that unfortunately for a story, the beginning and ending are going to be often the most important moments, right? How you lead into a story. The way this one led in was pretty good. So I got good vibes about the beginning of it. Do not have good vibes about how this one ended. So it's hard for me to be, despite some of the storytelling strengths and things I can praise about it, it's hard for me to be oh yeah, I really like this one, because I really just not digging the ending.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I enjoyed it on balance. I thought it was really fun. Thanks, Hutch, for making me read the book that I meant to
Sure.
2 years ago to read. So
sure.
But yeah,
I appreciated the reread. This was fun, because I actually misremembered what was in this, because in talking with you about what was in here, I'd forgotten I got this mixed up with something else. So because I had not read this in so long, and I did remember a lot of the stuff that was in it. But when I was talking with you about Vicky Vale, that was actually from it was something to do with Russia, and they did do a monster after KG Beast called NKV Demon.
Yeah.
And so it could be that. I don't remember. I'd have to go find the issue. But anyway, I won't even get off on the sidetrack of what I was thinking was in this. But
I think the final question we need to ask ourselves is who, comparing to current events, who's more incompetent, Batman and running behind the KG Beast and it can't stop 100 deaths happening, or the Secret Service not stopping an obvious shooter on a roof that's somewhat sloped?
Well, in this comic, Batman swoops down and grabs Reagan, and he's like, well, they're all looking on the ground, and I'm like, well, they wouldn't all be looking on the ground.
So we're saying it's dead heat for who's the most cartoonishly incompetent.
The Secret Service, I'm not going to say that the Secret Service are always incompetent, because this is the things that has happened in the last few weeks. First of all, the people that were with Trump were not even all Secret Service. and he'd been asking for more people, and they'd been kind of denying the sorts of, he should have had a way bigger team than what they were giving him. And what they were giving him was not all Secret Service, but like some desk people who were brought in and, and told to replace them because they're all working long hours. And so this was like not even the B squad. It's like the replacements for the B squad because the B squad are tired. So, there's the Secret Service is usually very good in terms of guarding the president. And that's what we all know, is that it's like the Secret Service not seeing a roof. We all know that you check out the roof. You secure that roof. That's way too incompetent for you and I know that you would do that. So,
well, part of the situation that we're looking at, I think, with this whole thing in the comic, is it's not that Batman's incompetent; it's that Batman doesn't have good intel, and the KG Beast and his
very competent.
His little Iranian sidekick. They're the only they're the only people that are in on the details of the plan, right?
Yeah, there's also the traitor in the FBI too.
Right, the traitor in the FBI is it knows the plan, and the KGB conciliary. No, that's not the right word. The representative who's there, the mustache, the dark haired mustachioed fellow. He's there to represent what he knew of the original plan, but not the details. Like, obviously, the Beast is going through and he's adapting and he's changing the plan and and so the issue that Batman is dealing with is that without being able to establish this guy's MO, there's not a lot to go on, and the dude keeps changing his MO, right? So all Batman gets to do is be reactive on it. So I wouldn't say it's a failure in terms of like what Batman's doing wrong. It's more of an intelligence failure where he doesn't have the pieces to put the puzzle together.
He doesn't know what the guy looks like. They don't have any pictures of the guy, and he's got an Iranian sidekick that he doesn't know what he looks like.
I would like to say.
Did you realize that Robin took out the villain's sidekick?
Yeah.
So
it's like KG Beast has a Robin, basically.
You guys are taking this question way more seriously than I intended it. I was just trying to be. I was just trying to meme. But I do think it's funny when you can make.
So I guess I'm saying I think that Batman is better equipped to take out the KG Beast than the actual Secret Service is to protect the president.
I think the fact that we can compare like a literal cartoon with the cartoonish events of our time is in fact the real kind of dark moment of being I
gotta say, it would be cartoonish if it wasn't for the other people that got shot, right?
Yeah,
and that's
the situation is cartoonish. The results of it are tragic and awful.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's just like Andrew Clavin says, human sin would be hilarious if it wasn't for the suffering that it causes.
That's fair.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
And it's in that same kind of thing. I mean, we all deserve better and worse simultaneously.
That's the problem. An attempted assassination should not be so humorously bad in so many ways. It's like there shouldn't be 100 people going, "Shooter up there! Hey, shooter!"
Well,
hey,
to get super political about it.
Yeah,
there was a thing from just one little like weeby little or whatever little tidbit. Somehow this guy got a gun there, and apparently nobody knows how it happened because nobody spotted him with a gun. And Ray, before Congress, I think it was today, said, "Yeah, we're not exactly sure how that happened either, but the stock folded. I don't know if that helps." And I'm like, just you saying those words, should be enough.
That should not be a way to get a gun past the Secret Service. It shouldn't be.
That's like if I took my car into a mechanic and he's like, "Yeah, I don't know if this helps, but your check engine light is on." Give me
All
my
right,
card
sorry.
back, I'm gonna go
I
out.
didn't. Let's put a pin in that. Let's.
Yeah.
We're here to talk about
that's
the
enough.
comic. But
Christopher
Yeah.
Ray should be.
I feel like we're
thrown
living
out
in
of
a comic,
the
though.
that was my point. My point is that the fact that we can make the fact we can make some of these comparisons is kind of darkly humorous in a really thick and twisted way. It's like this.
I'm going to say if we were living in Tim Lim and Mark Pellegrini's Walmart comic, it would be less humorous than the real world.
Yeah. I mean, look at the last week where the president just vanished, and then a piece of paper came out saying, "I'm leaving," and it's like he doesn't. Wait, come on. Does he even know he did that?
That's the plot of the plot of a comic book. That's the literal, like Superman comes in to save the day because they've kidnapped the president. That's like how a comic book.
I don't know if you saw any of his speech from today.
I wrote this and I'm fine.
He's like, I'm giving my stump speech, but I'm not going to run for president anymore.
Clark, there seems to be something fishy. I think we should go investigate.
I'm expected to hear the any minute now. I'm expecting to hear the narrator from Batman 66. Meanwhile, in Washington D.C.,
right? Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
it's as silly as when
Penguin has kidnapped the president.
right.
Burgess Meredith sitting with his feet back on the Resolute desk. I mean, that's just like the only thing that makes sense.
I am taking over the United States.
Do you remember the Batman
now
movie?
That I've kidnapped Joe Biden.
Yeah. Do you remember the Batman movie from the 60s where they snuck into the UN?
Yeah.
And to do it, they put on masks so that the Joker puts on a mask and the Riddler puts on a mask and Catwoman puts on a mask. And it's like, that way they won't know that who we are. And they sneak in. It's like, that's about, sadly, that would be effective.
In a reconditioned, post-World War II nuclear sub.
That looks like a penguin.
Yeah. It's perfect.
Yeah.
That's a world that makes more sense than the world we're living in.
Right. I think we can end on Star's note that reality is stranger than fiction. We are living in comic book times. So read some comic books because it'll help you make sense of your world in strange and interesting ways. So
with that, we'll go ahead and wrap the show. Next week, no show because I will be. I'm sorry, everyone out there who I know all 30 of you that tune in on the regular. I appreciate every single one of you. That's not. It can't possibly be true. Hopefully we're providing something enjoyable. That's what I hope to you guys. But I've got a whole mess of work stuff that has to be done, and I need my 2 hours to make sure I get it all done on time. Week after that, there'll definitely be a show. I'm not sure what we're doing, but I do know next month we are going to be reviewing Bosch Faustin's Pigman. So I don't know when that's happening, but that's definitely happening in August. But until then, get out there, read some comics, go check out Demon Hunter. Raven. Oh no, yeah. Well,
Demon Hunter.
Demon Hunter Raven is being published in Exciting Comics, and that's available in your local comic shop. But Winnie the Pooh Demon Hunter, which both Twitless and I have credits in it, so it is Nick's property. It's his brainchild. He brought us on to polish and shine and adjust a few things here and there. So I was the mechanic. Twitless was the detail man. So if that makes any sense. But it's all Nick's design and work and effort. And
can I plug my thing?
Oh, please do.
It's just before you say goodbye, I'm just going to let you know. First of all, this is my YouTube channel. You lousy kids, right there. That's my YouTube channel, and please go subscribe. I'm going to be doing a special show. The reason why I'm growing out the hair here and the hair along my head, I'm going to be doing a special Zelda show where I do the political campaign in this one village where there's two people running for mayor, and the main character has to help out. But it's not going to be me. I'm going to be doing my show as a certain somebody who owes $1.5 billion. While I still have the body fat to portray him, I'm going to be Alex Jones. and I'm going to save all the gay frogs in the village. So it's going to be a very special show. I'm going to be promoting it all over Twitter and everywhere else. So whether you love Alex Jones or hate him, you should like the show. And I'm going to be doing that in about 2 weeks. I will give adequate advertising at the time, but I just wanted to let you know that's coming. So subscribe to my channel if you want to see it.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. And of course, Twitless is still doing Super Schooled with Cartoonicus out there in the world, as well as the Adventures of Omega Girl. And you can, I will be getting back to the comic grind once I get my kid moved to Lincoln after I get all this pile of work done for my day job. So I expect August to be much slower than July has been. So that's the story. Is there anything else you got to say, Twitless, before we hit that end stream button?
Nope. Keep reading comics. Look forward to more Omega Girl coming soon.
Absolutely. And yeah, that's all the words. They're done. They're the best words. Twitless knows all the best words.
Aww.
That's how it works.